Greetings, music lovers. My name is Deepa Joshi. Welcome to the Raga Room. Have you wondered the psychological effect of music on your mind? Why do you feel what you feel when you're lost in the world of music? Simply because music answers the demands of our soul. While the benefits of music on our brains continue being explored by modern science, here's an analogy. Prana in Sanskrit means breath, a life-giving source. Voice is a manifestation of breath, prana. Artists invoke their psychological power using their voice as a medium to communicate their art. The sadhana of this artist is what captivates the audience. What about instruments then, you'll say? When an artist strikes a note on the instrument, he automatically connects people with its vibration. When an instrument is tuned to perfection, not only did the artist tune his instrument, he also tunes the souls of the audience present at the venue. With these vibrations creating a celestial effect, a concert begins. The rest is up to your imagination. What a beautiful place that might be. Now imagine when younger generation align themselves with pursuing art as their passion. And not just pursuing, assuming a cultural responsibility to propagate the beauty of this timeless art form. It transcends all barriers and creates waves of magic. Our next guest of the Raga Room, popularly known as the Lords of the Strings, are in pursuit of creating magic through their music. With all of that said, Raga Room is proud to feature this dynamic duo, Ayush Mohan and Lakshay Mohan, in our two-part series called The Lords of the Strings. Ayush plays the sarod and Lakshay plays the sitar. It is with extreme pride and delight that I'd like to welcome Ayush Mohan, a sarod maestro and composer, to the Raga Room. Ayush Mohan Gupta is considered as one of the finest sarod players of the country. He has enthralled music lovers across the globe with his unique style of playing the sarod. Ayush was initiated into Indian classical music at a tender age by Pandit Balwant Rai Verma, the senior-most disciple of Pandit Ravi Shankar. Ayush is placed among the most worthy torchbearers of the Senya Maihar Gharana. Ayush Mohan has won the hearts of audience with his incredible mastery of sarod and power-packed playing at prestigious classical music festivals and venues across the world, some of which are the Grammy Museum Los Angeles, Symphony Space Broadway, New York City, Berklee College, Boston, Central Conservatory of Music, Beijing, Symphony Space, New York, India Fine Arts Academy, San Diego, Tyagaraja Festival, Cleveland, Sawai Gandharva Festival, Pune, Saptak Festival, Ahmedabad, Taj Mahotsav, Agra, Ganga Mahotsav, Varanasi. Ayush is a TEDx motivational speaker where he talks about bringing awareness of our cultural heritage to the younger generation. He is hailed as one of the most outstanding and talented musicians of the younger generations by the legends Bharat Ratna Pandit Ravi Shankar and Sangeet Martand Pandit Jasraj. After listening to the Jugalbandi of Ayush Mohan and his brother sitarist Lakshay Mohan at the Ravi Shankar Center in the year 2012, Pandit Ravi Shankar, on seeing the talent and dedication, decided to launch them for their debut US tour under his foundation. This tour materialized in 2015, in which Lakshay and Ayush performed at many of the most prestigious music festivals and venues in the USA. Lakshay and Ayush are the first Indians to be invited to perform at the Grammy Museum Los Angeles for the opening of the exhibition Ravi Shankar, Alive in Music. This concert featured their collaboration with American cellist Barry Phillips. His recent albums, The Majestic Chord by Times Music and Echoes from the Yellow Land by Mystica Music, have been applauded by music lovers around the globe. His music has also been featured on Twang, the new age online platform for classical music. Ayush manages to strike a balance between technical brilliance, emotional content, raga purity, and aesthetic awareness that is becoming very rare in the realm of Indian classical instrumental music. Ayush has received many awards and accolades, some of which include Excellence in Performing Arts awarded by Lok Sabha Speaker Srimati Meera Kumar and Sri Shatrughan Sinha on the 75th birth anniversary celebrations of literature and parliamentarian late Dr. Shankar Dayal Singh. The Delhi Pratibha Puraskar Award by Arts and Cultural Trust of India, and many more. The All India Radio invited him to perform for a special broadcast on the occasion of the United Nations International Broadcasting Day. He was recently invited by the Ramakrishna Mission of Delhi, Jaipur, Bangalore, and Arunachal to perform during the closing ceremony of Swami Vivekananda's 150th birth anniversary celebrations. Hello Ayush, welcome to the Raga Room.
Thank you so much.
It's an absolute delight to have an artist par excellence on our show.
Thank you so much, Deepa
Ayush,
ji.
with so many...
It's indeed a pleasure to be on this initiative, and the Raga Room is doing such a wonderful job, because I have always felt what we see when we see an artist on stage, there is a whole world, there is a whole journey behind every artist, and it is very important to know about that journey and go deep into that. And this is exactly what the Raga Room is doing, and I am really happy that you have started this initiative, and extremely happy to be joining this initiative today.
Thank you. My pleasure entirely. Exactly what you said is the objective of the Raga Room, to connect our viewers with the fundamentals of classical music, to make it accessible and available. And
yes,
when
Deepa
the artist
ji, yes.
talks about their journey and their experiences, one feels there is a connection, and they feel like maybe this is something that I can pursue, I can go after. So that
Absolutely.
is exactly what the Raga Room's objective is. And I thank you for being on our show.
Thank you.
Well,
Pleasure.
Ayush, so many achievements at such a young age. This can only culminate from an intense love for music. And you do not hail from a family of musicians, and
That's
yet your
right.
connection to music is so deep-rooted. What was the guiding light that brought you to the sonorous space?
So to begin with, I think I can never remember a time or a certain age when I was not into music. So since the very childhood, me and my brother Lakshay Mohan is a sitarist, and we have been performing duets for the past many years, and Sitar and Sarod performances as well. So when I go back, I don't think I can remember a certain age when we started learning music or music came into our life. Because whenever I think of my childhood, I think music was always a part of our lives. At our home, always there was an atmosphere conducive to music. So our parents are not professional musicians, but both our father and mother they were so deeply in love with this culture and this music, and that was the reason music was an integral part of our upbringing. I remember when we were like toddlers, 2 or 3 years old, I would have been 2 or 3 years old, these cassettes of classical music, all the great legends, Pandit Ravi Shankar ji, Ustad Ali Akbar Khan Sahab, Pandit Nikhil Banerjee, Pandit Bhimsen Joshi, all these cassettes, used to keep playing in our home, and at the back of the mind, the music was constantly being absorbed in an unconscious way. And, music was such an important part of our household that I don't think there was anything else that fascinated us during that time. And I feel it's completely a blessing that we got such parents who had such love and devotion for this music. So the story is that, our father, he, of course, he's not a professional musician, but in his college days, he was very fond of playing the sitar. But unfortunately, he couldn't pursue it professionally. He got into his own business and his own profession. But his love for music never got less, and that was the reason that he was very passionate, and he wanted us to, learn this and, to know the meaning of this art. And it so happened that I think it's completely a blessing, and I think there is always a divine guiding light, I feel, that we both of us, me and my brother, feel. Because, at that age, a parent cannot pressurize you to do something. It's
Correct.
actually something very natural that comes to you, that fascination towards
Yes.
something. And I
Yes.
feel very fortunate that in that environment, we became so naturally fascinated with music and these sounds. Of course, we were like very young to understand the intricacies of ragas, but that fascination towards the music started right from that age. And that was the reason that it became so deep rooted within us that we didn't realize that when this music became our calling.
Wow, what a beautiful story. Actually, a couple things, right, when I'm trying to put this all together.
Yeah.
First and foremost, you had the influence, your parents exposed you to classical music and you listened to all these cassettes. And I do resonate with you on that because when I was younger, The Call of the Valley was one of the albums that was
Oh, of
released.
course, yes,
And we were
yes.
really very young to understand it at that time. But there were some songs that were so beautiful, Pandit Shiv Kumar Sharma's
Ji.
Santoor.
Right.
Even now, when you think about it, it reminds you of growing up. Back then, you did not know that it was classical music, but something about it made you feel really nice and you felt like you had to listen to it more and more.
Absolutely.
So
There
to
was a
be able
strange
to
connection that I always felt.
Exactly. So it's really important to be in an atmosphere where you are exposed to this, so it becomes a part of you, and then you get to pursue it. And also, like, kudos to your parents for encouraging you to identify that you have a talent and let you pursue art to your heart's content. And I have been reading that you come from a very well educated family, and most of your family are IITians. And, back home, parents want their children to take up a professional course. And if you go after any art, it's very natural for parents to feel like, is this going to feed you?
Right,
Music
right.
is fine, painting is fine, designing is fine, but is that going to pay you? So, is that going to be a good source of your livelihood? Which is a legitimate fear for most parents.
Absolutely,
But
absolutely.
now, both you and your brother went for music to go after it as your passion. So, really great job on your parents to let you pursue your art form. If they did not, then we would not be witnessing the magic of your music. So, how was it when you were growing up? Was there pressure from your parents to pursue a professional course, or they said, you are made for this, so go after it? How did it go about?
I would say that when we were growing up and we were so immersed in this world of music, when we were learning, I don't think there came a point when we actually decided that we want this to be our profession. It happened so naturally to us, and from our parents, they were very, in fact, happy and wanting us to make this our life. Because our father, he wanted us to make it our life, our profession. Because if you venture into two professions, of course, then you can't give your best to both of them. And
Correct.
so the love for music and that that natural connection was so strong that there was never a second thought about taking another profession. Of course, that when we were learning this music, when we were not performers, me and my brother, our parents had to face a lot of pressure from the society because coming from a North Indian family, where arts didn't have so much appreciation in that time. So there was a lot of pressure from relatives, from people around us, because in our family, as you mentioned, our fathers and all our relatives, they are IITians and they are into this education industry. So there was a lot of pressure because at that time, I think all those people around us, they were not understanding the glory of this art that we were pursuing. For them, it just seemed to be a hobby that we were pursuing in our childhood, or maybe they were not aware of the magnificence or glory of the art. So it was very natural for them to feel that why they are allowing their children to just be into music. And so of course at that time it was very tough for them also, but they knew that if they continue to work hard and continue to walk in the right direction, they will reach their destination. And it was that understanding and that willpower that they had, that we feel very fortunate that they were always our guiding light in that sense. So and we were always very fortunate that we had such memorable incidents when some of these greatest legends blessed us and they inspired us to move forward in life.
Yes.
I remember when we had this opportunity to perform in front of none other than Bharat Ratna Pandit Ravi Shankar ji. At that time, I was about to turn 17 years old and my brother was 20. So we were 17 and 20. So I was still in school, and I remember that that day was a complete turning point in our lives, because when he heard us, he blessed us and encouraged us so much that we never had any second thought on this music. And he, in fact, especially when he blessed our father, he said, you have to take care of them and you have to make sure that they keep walking on this path, because if you make them do something else, that would be the biggest misery to our music.
It's a disservice to the
Yes,
music industry.
yes.
I completely agree. I have to actually go back a few steps here.
Sure.
So you said you were 17
Yes.
and Lakshay was 20 when you were discovered by Pandit Ravi Shankar ji.
Yes.
So for you to be able to be recognized by Pandit Ravi Shankar at such a young age, and you must have by then got to a certain level in your music or your talim. So how many years of training did you already have by that time, and how did it start, your interest, your training in music?
So I think when I started learning or playing music, that must have been like when I was 6 or 7 years old. So I was already 10 years into music, and by 2009, when I was 14, we had already started performing as child prodigies on stage in many concerts in Kolkata, in Delhi. So it had been 10 years, and if I go back to that time when I actually started, in my childhood, actually, the very interesting thing is that me and my brother both used to play sitar. We were both sitar players, because when we were learning from our guru, Pandit Balwant Rai Verma ji, who is the senior most disciple of Pandit Ravi Shankar ji, we were both playing sitar at that time. But it so happened that in our homes, I used to listen to these recordings of Ustad Ali Akbar Khan Sahab, the great Sarod legend, and I was, naturally so fascinated by the sound. And it so happened that, one day our Guruji, Pandit Balwant Rai ji, he said that, I think you will be able to express yourself musically better on the Sarod. So he told me this, and I think all these things, how destiny led me to Sarod, I think it's a complete miracle, because I came to the instrument so naturally. Of course, it was not the pressure of my guru, but I was also very much fascinated by the sound of the instrument. And when I began playing that, I think it just resonated so deeply within me, the instrument. And I was very fortunate to be accepted as a disciple by Padma Bhushan Sharan Rani ji, who is India's first woman sarod player, and she is recognized for bringing a cultural revolution in India. So I remember that when I started learning from her, I was probably 9 years old when I started learning from her, and she was a very, very strict teacher at that time. I remember when my parents first took me to her home to learning, to convince her that she teaches me. So the first thing she told my parents was that if you want him to learn, first of all, he will come alone to learn from me. None of you will come. He has to independently, lift his instrument. He has to come here. He has to take the lessons independently. He has to, stand on his own feet. And I was 9 years old at that time. And that training, because she had that training from her guru, Ustad Alauddin Khan Sahab, the founder of Maihar Gharana. And she, was a woman of such strong principles and everything so disciplined and so strong that she wanted everything to be done so perfectly. There was no compromise in her dictionary. So all these gurus of the old generation, they always want you to, they never believe in shortcuts, and they always want you to do things in the perfect way.
Absolutely.
I remember when I started learning from her, it was so tough for me. I would, my father would wait in the car when I would be taking the lessons, and whenever I used to come out, sometimes, the lessons were so hard for me that I would cry, because practicing
Especially because, yes. and your fingers will bleed and you'll develop callus and
Absolutely. For the Sarod, one has to develop that callus on the fingernails. So at 9 years of age, 10 years of age, it was so tough to develop that callus and to have that hard training on an instrument like Sarod, which is, of course, one of the toughest instruments in the initial stage. Though Sitar and Sarod are equally tough instruments, but in the initial stages, Sarod is a little more tough to begin with.
Yes. Such beautiful things you just said. So many beautiful things, actually. First and foremost, I think for something like this to come alive, number one is that the universe uses you as an instrument. Like without you knowing, Sarod came into your life. It happened to you organically.
Absolutely.
And you were also fortunate in so many ways, I would say, to have been blessed by such great parents and to have found such a great guru. And going by the tenets of music or any art or anything that one wants to pursue, it does not have to be quite music itself. The discipline is important and the sadhana is important. And very correctly, like your Guruji was strict about certain things. You had to do it a certain way. You have to bring your own instrument. These are all things that teach you to be strong, teach you to do things right. The shortcuts are really not going to get you
in the long run,
and one has to follow a certain route or a certain journey to get to your destination, which I think is what has culminated into what you have become today. So that is absolutely wonderful. Again, you were 9 when you started Sarod, and before that you were already playing sitar, and in a very young age like that, so many things to get distracted. I have also seen your interviews where you have said that when the other kids were playing cricket or they were doing some other things, you would sit down and write the music notes. And how was it growing up in school, and how, when you were so much into classical music, how was it to kind of be a part of your friends and things like that?
So if I go down the journey, so I feel that time when I was, I was exploring the world of Sarod. So the instrument and its sound, the way it captivated me, it's, just impossible to describe it in words. The effect it had on my mind, the power I felt through the sound of the instrument, sound of the Sarod. Yeah, it's, it kind of made me feel connected to a very strong power or a very strong force that, always, I think it led me in the right direction, I would say. So in that time, of course, when I was 9 or 10 years old, when children are small, naturally, we have television at home and of course, friends at school. So everything has an influence on you when you go to a school, or of course, those things were always there. But I think the kind of atmosphere, again, I will come to that, we had at home. And especially, in our journey, in me and my brother's journey, there has been a very important aspect of, going to live concerts. We have attended, so many concerts that I think I have more memories of concerts than, of my school exams or something. We have attended so many concerts. I think we never missed any event in Delhi, whether it was vocal or instrumental. I remember, when we used to be back from school. So at that time, when I was learning Sarod from my guru, Sharan Rani ji, my brother used to learn from Pandit Uma Shankar Mishra ji, another very senior disciple of Pandit Ravi Shankar ji, who used to teach at the very prestigious Triveni Kala Sangam in New Delhi, which is one of the oldest music schools. So when we used to come back from school, I remember my mother used to take Lakshay to Triveni for his lessons, and my father used to take me to Sharan Rani ji. And after the lessons, we would be either going to Kamani Auditorium or Habitat Center to attend one of the concerts. And during those concerts, we would, all four of us would be talking about what the performer is doing or what exactly is happening on stage. Our father was always very passionate, so he had this idea about ragas, and also we were at that time we used to try to recognize the rag that a performer would be singing, and that mystery of understanding the notes of music, when one is small and not so acquainted with the music, that would feel so engaging, so to think about understanding those notes and what exactly the performer does, that connection between the audience and the performer. So that magnetic force I felt in those concerts, it was so strong. I remember, when we used to be back home after attending those concerts, I was so lost in that world that I would make all the excuses to miss school the other day. I was, so lost in that world that I didn't want to come back to that routine. So I, made all those excuses to miss school the next day. And I was so lost in that world. When I went to school the next day, when I was sitting in my break periods, I used to think about that experience that pulled me so much. That experience, that sound, and that that music in the air. It felt so strong. So I used to think about it all the time, and it was we very fortunate that we were with the right gurus at that time. After my guru Sharan Rani ji passed away, we both of us started going to Kolkata to learn from Sarod Maestro Pandit Tejendra Majumdar ji. That was another very important chapter when I think I was 12 years old and Lakshay was 15 years old when we started going to Kolkata. So it was a very, very tough, it was a big challenge, When we heard him for the first time, our guru Pandit Tejendra Majumdar ji, we thought, this is not possible. We are based in Delhi. How can we go to Kolkata? Our parents thought. How will they miss out on their studies and all? But we were determined to, do anything. Our parents were determined to, do anything to make us learn this music. So we decided that we'll go to Kolkata to learn from him after our senior gurus couldn't teach anymore and Sharan Rani ji passed away. So we started going to Kolkata to learn from Pandit Tejendra Majumdar ji, and that opened a whole new chapter of Kolkata, going to Kolkata's music concerts and meeting musicians. So that was a whole new chapter that took so much of our space in mind. But that was a very tough time, managing studies with we would go to Kolkata once in a month and for a week also sometimes. So that was very tough, taking so much off from school and being in that world. And when we used to get back to Delhi, so it was so difficult to adjust back in the world of school and children. It felt so difficult.
Yes. But music kept you going.
Absolutely, absolutely.
And the other thing that I want to also talk about is the live performances that you just mentioned, which have such a power to it. I guess it is a synergy of the audience and the artist that perform, isn't it? You yourself are such a great performer. One feeds off of the energy from the audience. The venue sometimes makes such a big difference in the performance, and there is such an energy, and all of the practice and all the sadhana that an artist has done will come alive on stage. And the artist actually, that the best time is when, I guess, when all the energies connect and it becomes such a beautiful place. And imagine the audience to experience that versus of course, recordings, of course, they're always great. But when you are in a live performance, it's a totally different experience. And I can understand what you mean by wanting to attend a live performance and the exposure that you had growing up. That is actually phenomenal. And also that is what probably drove you into, and when you talked about, you did not feel like it's a very big deal because you were going after something really big. So I guess, you had your vision in mind and you went after it. You were, just like we spoke about, you were 17 when you were discovered by Pandit Ravi Shankar ji. And it also led you on to your first debut performance, performing at the Grammy Museum Los Angeles.
That's right.
So tell us about how you were discovered by Pandit ji and how did your journey start from there?
So we had started live performances by 2009. We had started performing on stage in Kolkata. Our first major concert was in 2010 at the Ramakrishna Mission Institute of Culture. And then very next month in January 2011, we performed at the All Bengal Music Conference. So that was the time we started emerging on the concert scene. Of course, we were very young. We were child prodigies at that time. And but by then we had completely decided that music is going to be our life and it is going to be our profession, and there is no chance of taking any second profession, because we want to stay focused 24/7 into this music. So when we had started performing, so it happened in the spring of 2012. To be precise, it was the 24th of February 2012 that the Rimpa festival in Delhi, which is held at the Ravi Shankar Center, and every year Pandit Ji, Guruji Pandit Ravi Shankar Ji used to come there whenever his health was fine. So we were very fortunate that that year 2012 was his last visit to Delhi, and we were invited to perform for the Rimpa festival, because since we are his grand disciples, his disciple Pandit Balwant Rai Verma Ji's disciple, and we have also trained with some of his senior disciples. We have also taken guidance from Pandit Vishwaman Bhatt Ji. So in a way we are his grand disciples. And in our classical music, our Dada Guru or the grand Guru is considered as important as your Guru, because it's the lineage or the legacy that is coming. So we were invited to play at the Rimpa festival, and I think that was the greatest blessing of our lives, that we got to play at Panditji's last year to Delhi. And I remember that the day when we performed at the Rimpa in front of him, that completely changed our lives. We were so anxious and so excited at the same time, to perform in front of your idol, who has been a complete inspiration and a complete, like, for children, just like they have Shah Rukh Khan or Amitabh Bachchan. So Pandit Ravi Shankar was like that for us. So to perform in front of him was such an overwhelming experience. And I remember when we performed, and after the performance he called us to bless us, and he expressed how happy he was to see that we had taken the right direction, and that we were following the discipline of the Maihar Gharana. And that same evening he told us that he wanted to launch us in USA under the Ravi Shankar Foundation. So that was a turning point. And so the same year, unfortunately, he passed away in December. But later on, Guruma Sukanya Shankar Ji, Mrs. Ravi Shankar Ji, planned the whole tour, our debut USA tour, that was materialized in 2015. So in 2015, we did our first concert tour outside India in the USA, which was completely planned by the Ravi Shankar Foundation, Guruma Sukanya Shankar Ji. And on that tour, we had the honor of performing at some of the most prominent concert venues and festivals of Indian classical music. I remember we performed at LearnQuest Music Conference, and some very memorable moments from that tour. I'll just try to go back. I remember we were performing in Boston at the LearnQuest Music Conference. That was the 4th of April, to be precise, 2015. And it so happened that our concert was ended in the evening, and just after we were back home, we had to fly to Cleveland, where we were performing next day. And without any sleep, without any rest, we were on stage in Cleveland. And we had Guruma and all those dignitaries of the Carnatic music and such distinguished guests from the music fraternity. And, I just cannot believe what happened that day. There was such a divine energy that we felt on stage that day that transcended all that tiredness and all those barriers that were there. And we felt that connection with that audience, that performance remained to be one of the most memorable performances till today at the Cleveland Tyag Raja Festival. I remember that was one of the most memorable performances. And after that, the final performance on that tour was at the Grammy Museum, which was a complete honor to be invited as the first Indians, me and Lakshay, to be invited as the first Indians to represent India at the Grammy Museum. So that was a complete honor to play at the Grammy Museum.
Absolutely. When someone like an idol who you have been worshipping validates you, it puts you on another high altogether. You feel like someone has put their trust in you. So what is the best that I can do? So your all of your interest and all of your passion just comes to the fore, and you're like, what is that I can do to make sure that I'm performing at my optimum? So it is so important for people that we look up to validate us in some form or the other, at least so that they will lead us on, they will inspire us, and that would give us the next step to go ahead. And I'm so glad that it happened with you. And Cleveland Aradhana Festival is one of the most prestigious music festivals
Absolutely.
that happens in America. And when you're talking about Sleepless for 48 hours and having that kind of wonderful performance, I'm thinking the energy of the concert must have been so fabulous. And when you and Lakshay performed, what an amazing reception that you must have got at that concert. I'm wondering, must have been a treat to watch.
I remember, that auditorium at the Wayne State University. It had such a beautiful setting and such beautiful acoustics, and the music sounded so good on stage. I don't think the monitors were so strong, but the natural acoustics and the vibration of the hall was so blissful. And I remember that it was a complete miracle, if I think of it, because there are occasions when you are not satisfied with the performance in terms of sound or with the audience, but that day it was so perfect that we were just so much into the music, and there was nothing that was distracting us on stage. We were so focused. I remember we played Jinjoti, that is one of our most favorite ragas.
Oh my!
And
my
we concluded.
Ragas.
Absolutely. We concluded the concert with a ragmala of Guruji Pandit Ravi Shankar Ji's ragas that he had composed, Tilak Sham, and some of the most beautiful ragas that he had composed. So that performance, there have been many other occasions also when we have felt this energy on stage and this connection. But of course, there are a few handpicked of them when you feel that, the energy is on a different level completely.
Absolutely. I would like our viewers to watch a clipping of your Cleveland Aradhana Festival, and
absolutely.
I'm sure that would be absolutely appreciated. And just before that, I want to just go back a little bit and talk about your reception you got from your performance from the Grammy Museum.
Yes,
how was it performing there, and what was the feedback you got, and how did it feel to be the first youngest musicians to perform, taking a cultural heritage to a platform like that? What was your experience?
So it was a great honor to perform at the Grammy Museum, and since I remember on that tour when we performed at Grammy in Los Angeles, the concert just before that was in San Jose on the 12th of April, and this concert was on the 28th of April. So there was a big gap between these two concerts. And the Grammy concert that evening was all the more special because apart from our Jugalbandi, Sitar Sarod Jugalbandi, we also did a collaboration with Western classical cello with Barry Phillips on cello, who is another disciple of Pandit Ravi Shankar Ji. So that concert unfolded in 3 stages. First we performed our usual classical duet, and then we performed that composition, which is a composition of Pandit Ravi Shankar Ji, Palas Kafi. And I remember that when we were in San Jose for the last performance on 12th of April, so Guruma Sukanya Shankar Ji told us that, there is this piece by Guruji that I want you to play with Barry. So, but she had apprehensions because, the time was so less, and she said that, you have to sit for rehearsals because our Indian classical music is traditionally improvised on stage. But with that piece, since that was a collaboration with Western music, that was not the case. That was a pre-composed, fixed piece with Western notation for the cellist, and that had to be, memorized and played on stage. So I remember we used to drive all the way from San Jose to Barry's residence in Santa Cruz in California. So that was a 2-hour drive. So every day we would drive from San Jose to his place, and we would rehearse for like 6 to 7 hours at a stretch. Just mastering each and every stroke of that piece so that we could do justice to that great piece by Pandit Ravi Shankar Ji. So that time was so memorable. Whenever I think of that time, it brings back such fond memories that we are driving from San Jose, and we would enjoy some fine tea sitting by the lake in Santa Cruz, and we would return to the practice sessions. So 16 days of concentrated practice, and then when finally the day came, we were staying at San Diego at Pandit Ravi Shankar Ji's home, in Encinitas to be precise. That's a suburb of San Diego. So we were staying in Encinitas, and we drove to Los Angeles, all the way to Los Angeles, and that day was so special. We had such a huge responsibility in mind that being the first Indians to represent our culture and our identity and our music at that place. It was so prestigious and it was so special, and to have all those wonderful guests in the audience, conductor David Murphy, and then there were all some family members of George Harrison and such esteemed guests. To have these guests in the audience, and you feel a sense of responsibility to present the best of your music and to convey the real message behind your music to that audience. Because Indian music has a very special message to convey, something beyond entertainment that we have always felt that should be given to the listeners. So
Correct.
we had this in mind that when we were playing our classical piece, I remember we played Tilak Sham, which is a rag composed by Pandit Ravi Shankar ji. So by the grace of God, that performance went really well and it was very well received. And it was very, very heartening to see an audience which had never heard Indian classical music, never experienced Indian culture. They appreciated the music so well and they connected with the music. So that was very heartening, very encouraging for us. And we were told that we became the first Indians that evening to perform at that place. So of course it was a huge, huge honor to represent our country and music at that stage. And I remember when we returned to Delhi, India after that, there was a whole buzz in the music community and everyone knew about that performance because that was and that evening was that came so much to the limelight because of the first Indian performance at the Grammy. So it felt really great to present our great Indian classical music in front of that audience. It was one of the most memorable experiences that we have ever had.
Such a proud moment. Hearty congratulations to you and Lakshay.
Thank you so much.
This is a really proud moment for all of us. So without further ado, I'd like to present the Cleveland Aradhana Festival clipping to our viewers. So
Absolutely.
Here it goes.
Sure.
Absolutely wonderful performance, and I'm
Thank
sure
you.
it was really well received. It was such a joy and delight to see this performance.
Thank you
of
so much.
yours and Lakshay's. Thank you so much for sharing this with us, Ayush. So this was in the United States. How about in India? Any memorable performances that you want to talk about?
Yes, absolutely. Performing at some of the most prestigious festivals in India, whether it be in Mumbai or Pune, it has been always very special. I remember by 2014 or 15, when we had started performing at these major festivals, we performed at the Saptak Festival in Ahmedabad, at the Gunidas Sangeet Sammelan in Mumbai. And one of the most special performances that we always remember is at the Sawai Gandharva Mahotsav in Pune.
Wow.
Because I remember when we performed there in December 2016, we came to know, we were invited to perform, the concert was fixed like 6 months back. And we were so excited because since our childhood, we had heard about the buzz that surrounded, Sawai Gandharva and the kind of audience. We had always, fascinated that Maharashtra audience, because Maharashtra has always been very famous about music connoisseurs, and we had always dreamt of performing at Sawai Gandharva. That was a complete, I would say that was a dream come true to perform at Sawai Gandharva. So I remember when we performed at Sawai Gandharva in 2016. So it happened so that at Sawai Gandharva in an evening, usually there are 4 to 5 artists, and each artist, irrespective of senior or junior, they are given a fixed slot and they have to adhere to a slot of like 50 minutes to 55 minutes. And every artist has a fixed slot because there are many artists in an evening. So I remember we were told to play for 50 minutes that evening when we performed. So we were very particular because when we were playing, when an artist is playing, it's really difficult because music is being improvised on the spot. So you have to just check the clock when you are playing. So we started the recital with Rag Jog, the very beautiful late evening rag, which also happens to be one of our most all-time favorites. And after the usual alap jor, the gradual exposition of the rag, we presented a composition that we had composed in 9 beats, a rare rhythmic cycle, Mat Tal. We presented that composition, and as the performance progressed, there was this strange connection, and we could feel how the audience was connecting constantly with the pace of the music, as the music progressed, we could feel that, connection and that vibrance of the audience, how they were receiving the concert. It was in fact so overwhelming to see, not just the senior generation, but youngsters, even children in school children, they were listening with so much enthusiasm. There was not a single child who would be talking, who would be chattering. Everyone was so focused, and they seemed so much in awe of the artists and the stage and in awe of that environment. So I remember, there was, when you have such a serious audience who are so much focused on you, you have this strange energy within you that, that inspires you to give your best. And I remember when we were playing that there was this aura on stage, that was inspiring us continuously. And they were, during the Vistar, I remember, we were playing some things that we had never thought of. They were coming so spontaneously to our mind.
The best music comes from that place, isn't it?
Absolutely. When you are on stage and that bond with the audience, and when the audience is so receptive, you are completely in a different world. So after Jog, when we went on to the next rag Manj Khamaj, which is a very special rag of our Gharana, the Maihar Gharana. So when we played Manj Khamaj, as we progressed towards the end, towards the Jhala, I remember when we played the final stroke, an audience of 20,000 people rose to give a standing ovation to us, and we could hardly, believe what was happening. It was just beyond belief what was happening.
Oh my God, what a performance that must have been, Ayush.
Absolutely. That, the stage at Sawai Gandharva, it's planned such that, in your left you see people, in your right you see people, you see people all around. So seeing, 20,000 people with your eyes, it was just beyond imagination. And the standing ovation continued till we agreed to play more. So we were told by the organizers that this was held for the first time in the history of Sawai Gandharva that an artist was told to play more than their time.
Oh my God. I know about the time restrictions and how
Absolutely.
you have to stick to a certain time frame when you're performing at Sawai Gandharva. Even the place itself, the energy of the place, the confluence of many things. First of all, talented musicians, absorbing audience, the energy, the space, and of course, a place like that itself. So and then when you have such great talents like yourself and the best of your music comes alive, what can be more dear than that? I'm sure, 20,000 people standing ovation, I can actually put my mind on a visual mode and think about how beautiful it must have been.
At first we didn't think about playing more. We just thought it's just the enthusiasm, because we knew that we had to stick to our time slot. But then when the people kept on insisting, and finally the organizers came to tell us that you have to play more now. So
Continue.
we played Mand, which is one of our most favorites, the Kesariya Balam.
Oh my God, yes. Yes, it's such a beautiful song, and that is also a part of your the album, right? The Yellow.
Absolutely, absolutely. We have always had this fascination for Rajasthani folk music, especially Mand. We have worked a lot on Mand, and Mand has always, found a very special place in the music of our Gharana. All our legends have worked so much on Mand. So we thought that there couldn't be anything more suitable to conclude this performance with. So we concluded the recital with Mand. And after the concert, there was a whole bunch of people that surrounded us. So many children who wanted to know, and so many children who were hearing Sarod for the first time. Of course, sitar is more popular, so Sarod was new to some children who were hearing this instrument for the first time. So they wanted to know more. Some of them wanted to learn. So that enthusiasm was, so heartening. We have always, wanted, in fact, this has been our forte, to take Indian classical music to the younger generation and to make them connected with the music.
Yes.
So to see that happen in front of our eyes, that was so overwhelming, and that remains so special till today.
Wonderful. I do want to talk about the work that you are doing, you and Lakshay are doing in communicating your music to the younger generation. But before that, I'd like you to tell us a little bit about your Gharana and its Shaili, Maihar Gharana.
Absolutely. So we hail from the Maihar Gharana. So as the name suggests, Pandit Ravi Shankar ji, his guru, who was the founder of this Gharana, Baba Ustad Alauddin Khan Sahab, he founded this Gharana, and he was a man, he was such a visionary. He learned from so many gurus and absorbed so much, and he worked so much to create this unique style. Because vocal music is, of course, very, very old, and that is the original music, original classical music. There was a point when, of course, instrumental music existed, but always vocal music was considered more elaborate and more complete. Because if you go into the history of instrumental music, there was a time when, the renditions are, if you listen to the old recordings, a performer would start with a small alap, and the tracks would last for like maximum of 10 minutes, and just one small composition, very limited vistar or the spontaneous improvisation, just fixed, very limited content. So that was the traditional classical music. So after that, a lot of people started developing this style, and in this area, Ustad Alauddin Khan Sahab, Baba Ustad Alauddin Khan Sahab, he worked so immensely to create this whole baj or style of music that is prevalent today by so many musicians. So that style kind of gave instrumental music its own world, own language. And the music that we have heard from Pandit Ravi Shankar, Ustad Ali Akbar Khan Sahab, Pandit Nikhil Banerjee, so that is all coming from that. Of course, these legends have given their own shape to the music, which is of course very essential. But the foundation was laid by Ustad Alauddin Khan Sahab. So the Maihar Gharana focuses very much on aesthetics and maintaining raga purity. There has always been a lot of importance given to maintaining raga purity. In fact, the main message behind our Gharana is that aesthetics and grace should never be compromised for virtuosity or for making a performance more exciting. There always has to be a balance between your presentation. I feel that, while keeping the music pure and maintaining the tradition, you can make a style of presentation that can make the music more reachable and more accessible to people. And I always
What
feel
a nice thing to say. Yes.
absolutely. I always feel that for a musician or for any performer, it is of course very, very important to realize your own self and to make up a style of your own or make up your own path. But at the same time,
Correct.
I feel that innovation should not come at the cost of grace or aesthetics. That is very, very important.
Those things have to. That is the integral part of your Gharana.
Absolutely. And if you listen to any renditions or any ragas of Pandit Ravi Shankar or Ustad Ali Khan Sahab, you will always see that so much importance is given to the rag discipline. The rag saroop is always maintained in the right form. And they have always given so much importance to this. And at the same time, they have worked so much on their music and made it so versatile. It's not that they have stuck to the raga purity and kept the music limited. Within the rules of the rag and within the grace of the music, they have worked so much and they have expanded this music so much. And that is the reason that the music, instrumental music, sounds so complete today.
Absolutely. And for a person who does not know music so much, may not understand the grammar of all of that has been said, but even when you are not exposed to all these things, when you just listen to it, it automatically takes you into another world, it transports you somewhere else, and you just enjoy it, and you don't know what is happening, and you don't know why you feel what you're feeling, but you are in a beautiful place. I guess this is all of these things come together when we listen to beautiful music like that.
That's absolutely right, yeah.
And coming back to what you were just talking about, the younger generation, and you and Lakshay have taken on a responsibility, I want to call it a cultural responsibility of communicating your music to the younger generation, which is of great value. Just to give a very normal example in layman terms, I can tell you this, that my son is a teenager now, but when he was much younger in kindergarten or the first grade, they used to have these students from the high school that came and helped them out towards the end of the day with their math or science or something. They connected a lot more with those kids than the teachers. They felt more comfortable. They could ask them anything they wanted, and it was almost like a friend relationship. And they looked forward to those interactions. So going by that theory, when younger people like yourself go out there and talk about your music, talk about the importance of it, talk about following a discipline, talk about doing things the right way, and talk about enjoying the beauty of it, it makes such a huge impact. You are both TED speakers and you have given several motivational speeches. So how did that happen? How did you start giving these motivational speeches?
Yeah. So we have always, loved performing for young audiences. Whenever we have given performances in colleges or for students, we always cherish those experiences because we know that this generation that is listening to the music, this generation is here to stay. Because when the older generations leave us, these are the people who are going to hold this music for the next generation. So it is even more important.
Rich cultural legacy that we have.
Absolutely.
Pass it on to the next generation.
So it is very important that these people understand the real meaning behind our music. I have always felt that, it is very important for every child to be exposed to music. It is not important that they learn this music or technically understand it. Of course, if people take this music professionally, that is good. But even if you are appreciating it, if you are developing this ability to appreciate the music, that is a very, very important aspect, and that can go a long way in sustaining classical music in our society. So I remember when we started, when we started receiving these invitations for TED Talks. So the first talk that we gave in Delhi, that was I think sometime back in 2017. So it has always been a very wonderful experience because the whole theme behind TEDx is ideas that inspire or unconventional ideas that change lives. So we have always felt that for the younger generation it is very important, because there are certain myths or notions that sometimes young people hold in their minds, that this
Yes.
classical music is really old, or it's really slow, or something that they cannot connect to. So I feel it is because of the lack of exposure, or it is upon to the
Understanding.
artists to present music in such a way that young people can connect to it. So whenever we
Yes.
have given talks for TED or given performances, so it has been very special, because in fact, after many such talks, people have told us that they were so intrigued by this music that they started attending concerts, and they started listening to more of
Yeah.
classical music, and they started exploring more. In fact, that is very important, and I feel it is on a positive note now, that I feel so many youngsters are now open to exploring cultural heritage and knowing more about these art forms. So I feel that is very important, so that they can relate to it, because even if they are not playing music themselves, they can understand this culture, so tomorrow they can bring their children to these concerts. So that's how the culture will sustain.
It can just like be very fundamental, in the sense somebody who's never been exposed to music have heard a talk like this, and they just start singing a basic sargam. And just when you start a sargam, you feel like, oh, this is nice. Let me try it in the next speed. Let me try it with this combination. There's such an intrigue to it, right? You're just waiting to see where this is going to lead you. What is your next lesson? And that's how your journey begins. And people who really want to, that's a good place to start. And I'm so glad that what you're doing is such phenomenal work, and it is of great importance to understand, explore, and evolve and share good experiences. And you never know which such moment will make a difference in whose
Absolutely,
lives. So,
absolutely.
Ayush, I thank you from the bottom of my heart for coming to the Raga Room and sharing these wonderful experiences. It's a great honor and privilege that you have been a part of our show.
Thank you so much, Deepaji. The pleasure was completely mine, and I'm so glad that you are taking this initiative forward. And through this initiative, I'm sure new sections of audiences will engage in music, and they will understand more an artist's journey and much more about this world. I'm so glad that you're doing this initiative. The pleasure is completely mine.
I certainly hope so. Thank you so much for your good wishes. And before I let you go, I would like to play to our audience your performance, the Jinjoti performance.
Sure.
And I'm looking forward to seeing it definitely, and I'm sure our viewers will enjoy this performance.
Absolutely.
And again, thank you so much for coming to the Raga Room.
Thank you so much. It was a pleasure.
Bye. Now, wasn't that a captivating performance? Dear friends, we're not done yet. This is a two-part series. In our next episode, we are featuring Lakshay Mohan, Ayush's brother, who's a phenomenal sitar player. And along with that, we have a special treat waiting just for you. So stay tuned. Join us in our next episode at the Raga Room, where the soul listens as notes speak. Thank you.